Good morning, good evening, whatever time of day it is for you. Welcome to this thing that I do called Thor's Entertainment. I am Thor, and today I'm continuing my playthrough of the story mode for Mortal Kombat 1. And it is at this point that we are going to be playing through Chapter 12, which means we have gone through quite a good amount of the game already. And it would take a pretty long time to summarize every little detail about everything that's happened up to this point. But if you are interested in seeing all of that, I will go ahead and add a link to the playlist for the Mortal Kombat 1 playthrough in the corner of the screen now. But if you are not interested in seeing every little detail of how we got here, I will just go ahead and do a very quick summary of all the key points that are going to be important for this video. In a former timeline, the former champion of Mortal Kombat Liu Kang gained the powers of a fire god and a time titan. Now, back in that old timeline where Liu Kang was still mortal, it was damaged beyond repair. So Liu Kang elected to use his new powers to make a brand new timeline and try to make it better. So all the events that are happening in this video, those are all taking place in the new timeline. Now, one of the things that he wanted to change about this new timeline was the status of the threats from the old timeline. Those threats include Shang Tsung, Quan Chi, and shaokhan. Now, to keep them from becoming adversaries in this new timeline, Liu Kang gave them meaningless lives where they would never achieve the kind of powers they had back before when they were threats. Well, shockingly, they are now gaining powers just like they did before back when they were threats. So now the forces of Earthrealm have uncovered their villainous plot, which is to unleash a bunch of Soul Stealers on Earth. Now, the Soul Stealers kind of act as weapons of mass destruction, but they're also going to be used to revive an enchanted army for the villains. And making matters worse was that the Outworld government was actually supporting Shang Tsung and Quan Chi in their little mission to make these Soul Stealers to use against Earthrealm. So in the previous chapter, we saw Liu Kang go to Outworld and have a talk with Empress Sindel. And even though it took a little bit of convincing, Liu Kang was able to convince her that he was an ally and not an enemy by showing her Shang Tsung's laboratory, which is just filled with all kinds of crazy atrocities, and Sindel was just completely unaware that any of that was happening, did not approve of it, and found herself siding with Liu Kang finally. But not satisfied with just resorting to that, Liu Kang also dropped the bombshell that he was the one who created the timeline based on the powers he got from Kronika after he killed her, and inherited the powers of a Titan of Time. So yeah, many revelations later, now Outworld is on the side of Earthrealm with the exception of General Shao's most loyal members of the military. All of them are still supporting Shang Tsung and Quan Chi, and they are on the verge of completing all the preparations necessary for their enchanted army to be ready for a multi-realm invasion. Something that was ultimately made possible because Shang Tsung and Quan Chi had a mysterious benefactor, some mysterious person who has been helping them, who is not originally from this timeline, but a concurrent timeline. Who exactly is doing it? Well, we're not 100% sure just yet, but fingers crossed as we near the end of the game, we are going to find out. And that is where we are going to begin our playthrough here today. We are going to see the Earthrealm and Outworld allies going against the faction of Outworlders who are getting that army ready. Let's check it out now.
We are ready.
And the Soul Stealers?
Keep them running. I am sure we'll find a use for the collected souls.
Will they stand down, if ordered?
No. Those are the General's most loyal lieutenants.
They must be neutralized if we are to shut down the Soul Stealers.
Yes, they do. We should split up.
fight together. What's wrong?
My ribs. They may be broken. Help me up.
No, Tanya, stay down. This time, I protect you.
We are ermac. It is pointless to resist us.
Come any closer, and you'll feel the points of my blades.
We are many. You are one. Your souls will become part of our collection. Action!
All right, in the very first fight of this chapter, we get Mileena versus Ermac, which is a pretty tall task of an enemy to be starting off against. And not only is this just a chapter for Mileena, this is the very first story mode chapter for Mileena in any of the games. So she gets added to the list of a bunch of characters who previously did not get a whole lot of love, but in this game get some time to shine. And I'm really glad for it as well. Similar to a lot of the other characters, Mileena went through a bunch of changes in this game. In the previous games and the other timelines, Mileena was not just a sister of Kitana and a daughter of Sindel, she was a clone of Kitana, or at least a partial clone. And the reason I say partial is because she was partially Kitana, but somewhere in the DNA was mixed in some Tarkatan DNA. Now, Tarkatans, unlike in this game, were not infected people back in the day. In the previous timelines, they were their own species. And this scenario kind of set up Mileena as the Frankenstein's monster of the Mortal Kombat universe, although I never really felt like they did a whole lot with her previously, which kind of always felt like a wasted opportunity. Similar to a lot of the other villain characters that I've talked about previously getting this opportunity, Mileena in the old timeline basically only existed to lose and make the good guys look good, and the complexities of her backstory are very rarely ever explored.
You'll have no part of me, Ermac.
Amazing, Mileena. In another life, you could have been Umgadi.
I prefer this one, dearest Tanya. We must leave. Quickly.
Mileena, wait.
Father? Father? Is it truly you?
Yes, Mileena. This body was created from the living forest's souls. Mine was one of them. Your attack broke the spell that binds us. Now, I am in control.
Father!
You are Umgadi, but not Li Mei.
I replaced her after your death, Your Majesty. She left the Order rather than accept punishment.
Punishment? It was not her fault.
A discussion for another time, Father. We must go.
Jared?
Yes, Sindel. It's me.
How I've missed you.
Greetings, Jared.
Liu Kang, my friend. We meet again.
It is good to have you back. We once again find ourselves in challenging circumstances.
And once again, we will prevail. As always, Sindel, I am yours to command.
How is it they're unaware that the Soul Stealers are shut down?
We are deep within the mountain. From here, they couldn't tell.
Look at them conspiring. It is history we should not be repeating.
We must take the crown. Without it, he can't raise more warriors.
Our odds will improve if we can surround them.
I'll distract them while the rest of you get into position. Leave it to me, Mother. Shang Tsung.
Princess Mileena.
I bring news from Outworld. Sindel is deposed. General Shao now rules.
And yet you are still free.
To succeed, the General needed help on the inside. I provided it.
The heir to the throne gives it up willingly.
It is a burden I've never wanted. The realm is better left in General... Emperor Shao's hands.
A most mature perspective. Outworld benefits from your wisdom.
Yes, Shang Tsung, it does. But not in the manner that you expect.
A bold gambit, Princess.
It is an impressive display of guile. Who knew she was so capable?
You count yourselves among my doubters. I will count you among the dead.
Following the conclusion of that previous fight, we got to see Ermac go through a little bit of a change. That change being that King Jared, the former king of Outworld, father of Mileena, well, he managed to take control over all the souls in the Ermac body. And at least for the time being, he is the one in control, so we get a little bit of a family reunion. That's kind of cool because this is something that has been kind of hinted at before. If I remember correctly, back in Mortal Kombat 9, the arcade ladder ending for Ermac showed that King Jared was in the body of Ermac somewhere. At least I think that was Mortal Kombat 9. It might have been Mortal Kombat 10. It's been a little while. So yeah, this has been something that's been kind of lingering in the background for a really long time. And it basically took them rebooting the timeline again. And we got to see King Jared take over and actually be in control of Ermac. But I will step away from talking about Ermac for a moment. I'll go ahead and go back to Mileena since she is the chapter character. So yeah, like I mentioned earlier, Mileena is a lot different in this game. She is her own person, actually a born person instead of a clone. And aside from not being a science experiment, she is the actual heir to the throne, older than Katana. And rather than being a portion of the species of the Tarkatans, she is afflicted with the illness Tarkat in this new timeline. So yeah, there are a little bit of changes. This fight is almost over, so I'll go ahead and save my commentary for a little bit later, but I would like to explore the development of the character of Mileena in this game versus the old timeline.
There will be consequences for forsaking Outworld.
Thanks to the princess, this fight is ended.
The fight, perhaps. Not the battle.
True. Until your benefactor is caught, the realms remain threatened. Who is she, sorcerer?
Speak of the devil. Liu Kang. Meet Damashi.
Damashi? You are the victim of deception, sorcerer.
You're not Damashi. You're me. More correctly, you are me. A poor facsimile, anyway. Made lesser by Liu Kang's meddling.
What's happening here? Who is he?
This Shang Tsung is whom I battled for the Hourglass. I thought him dead.
As I did you, Liu Kang. It turns out our battle released mammoth energies which ripped apart time's fabric. The fight had two conclusions. In one, I was the victor. In the other, it was you. It was eons before I discovered this. Once I did, I knew the path forward.
I took this form and infiltrated your timeline. I elevated these wretches, giving them great power. Together, they sowed discord among the realms, and assembled for me the Dragon Army. I led them to believe they were aiding my conquest of Earthrealm and Outworld. But my intent is to exterminate all life in this timeline, and then merge it into my own.
You promised us realms. Now you leave us to slaughter? You were pawns, not partners. Your purpose served. You will be sacrificed.
We served you loyally, built you the Dragon Crown.
This? It is a toy. I do not need it to control the Dragon Army. Only the souls contained within. Goodbye, Liu Kang. Neither you nor your timeline will be missed. It appears our interests align. For now.
Know that I trust neither of you. I will finish you both at the first hint of treachery.
Mileena, what's wrong?
Serum wearing off. Must stay in control. You attack my family. I will make you suffer.
Further resistance serves no purpose. This timeline will be destroyed.
Action! And it is at this exact moment that this storyline goes completely off the rails. So I'm going to go ahead and just state that I do enjoy the story mode for Mortal Kombat 1. I really do. But it is at this exact moment where it kind of feels like I begin to play a completely different story. And what I mean by that is, up to this point, we had a story mode that you could consider kind of friendly to new players, people who are not that familiar with the Mortal Kombat universe. They could pick up the controller, start playing through it, and you're basically meeting all these characters for the first time because all their backstories are completely new. And even though there are previous timelines that are referenced, there are no major events that have happened in this timeline before except for the ones that we are encountering during this playthrough. So in that regard, it was kind of a good way for people to have a jumping on point for the franchise. And it has been that way pretty much the entire game. But in this chapter, they said, fuck that, we are going to be just loading this game up with a bunch of different references to the old games that, unless you've just been playing through like most of the history of Mortal Kombat, you might not even necessarily catch. And trust me, it only goes crazier from here. In fact, at the very end of this fight, I'm going to go ahead and pause it just so I can complete this point. And don't worry, this is not going to take too much longer. So it goes from being a story mode that was incredibly friendly to new players, to just a very reference-heavy wink wink nudge nudge, hey, do you remember that thing from that game 20 years ago? Well, there it is right there, kind of a game. Because there are just going to be non-stop Easter eggs and references from this point forward. Like, for example, the dark corrupted Raiden that we just got done fighting. He was present in Mortal Kombat 11, and he was also present back in Mortal Kombat Deception and Armageddon. Which, I mean, I'm all for it. I had a lot of fun with this because I have been playing all the main entry games pretty much for as long as this game has been around. So it was kind of cool to see all these things kind of reimagined in a way. But I have to admit, at this point, it started to feel like I was playing two completely different story modes.
This new Shang Tsung should have sent more minions.
Come forward if you dare. I will finish what Raiden could not. Your tenacity is to be admired. Until our last breaths are taken, as long as blood flows through our veins, we are not beaten. Noble sentiments, which in the end matter little. None of you will leave here alive. It's so sad to see a child lose her mother.
If my mother dies, she won't be the only sindel to perish!
And next up on the Mortal Kombat Multiverse of Madness, we have Mileena facing off against the dark evil Sindel of the other universe, which I believe this Sindel is supposed to be basically the exact same Sindel from Mortal Kombat 9, who was superpowered and basically killed the entire roster. Only in this scenario, she never died and lost her really overpowered power-up. So yeah, good luck Mileena. And speaking of Mileena, earlier I promised I would go back over Mileena and how she was handled a lot differently in this game. And on top of that, they actually do explore her a little bit more in this game, kind of breaking down the burden of being the next one in line to take over and, rule Outworld. And on top of just suffering from the burden of expectation, Mileena also has to suffer with the burden of being infected with Tarkat. So she's constantly trying to strike a balance between being a member of the royal family who is expected to eventually rule Outworld, and also trying to maintain her humanity and hold back the feral side of her that comes out whenever the Tarkat really takes hold. It basically took Mileena away from being the Frankenstein's monster of the old timeline. Now she has become much more of a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of scenario, which is a nice change of pace considering they really didn't do that much with her in the old timeline. Like, I'll explain what I mean in the next match.
Mother, you can't go. Not yet.
It's my time, dear. At least we had a few hours more.
I will cherish them.
Mother...
You are now Empress. Rule well.
I will, Mother. Father and Katana will help me.
Of course.
Father, what did you do?
I collected your mother's soul. It resides within me. She is safe.
Hurry, everyone. We must withdraw.
Earlier we saw that Scorpion can just melt these soldiers with fire. And he is here now, alongside Shang Tsung, who can also summon fire, and also Liu Kang, who is a fire god. I feel like we could just melt this whole army right now and call it done.
To move an army that large among realms, he'll need a portal, yes?
More than one. You will need a nexus of portal gateways.
It must be nearby. We follow them. They will lead us to it.
Agreed. But we cannot strike until Raiden and Kung Lao arrive.
That the Lin Kuei won't aid us is unforgivable. Bi-Han has corrupted them totally. When this crisis ends, we will deal with that one.
This is but the opening battle in a longer war. Titan Shang Tsung has prepared his entire timeline for it. We cannot match its strength.
My counterpart said that your battle with him ripped time's fabric, creating two timelines. But how do we know that it wasn't torn further? If there are two timelines, Can't there be more?
Why the thought experiment, sorcerer?
You said we lack strength. We might find it in other timelines.
How would we do that?
We gather allies from across timelines, other titans, to build an overwhelming force.
If they exist. We have no proof that they do.
We must fight the battle in front of us. We can't stake our survival on pure conjecture.
If Liu Kang is right, the battle in front of us is already lost. This may be our only hope.
Geras, your thoughts?
It is possible. But as I am only the Hourglass's steward, such a search is beyond me. It can only be undertaken by the Keeper of Time.
And I no longer wield that power.
You may be able to regain it.
What? How do you mean?
When you gave up control of the Hourglass, I worried that one day you would find you needed it. So rather than let your power dissipate, I collected it. To this day, it remains safely stored.
Why did you never tell me this?
Because the process of restoring your power is likely irreversible. Returning to the life you have now, as Earthrealm's protector, a life you cherish, may be impossible.
And you did not want me tempted to make that sacrifice, unless it was absolutely necessary.
Correct.
Thank you, Geras. You have saved us with your wisdom. Now, where have you stored my power? We must retrieve it.
It is at the Fire Temple, stored in the Jade Jaguar gifted to you by the great Kung Lao.
Yes, Geras.
Liu Kang has proven more resilient than anticipated. He and his comrades have escaped the fortress.
Forget the others. Find Liu Kang. He alone threatens my plans.
You could have picked no better vessel to store my power, Geras. I have always treasured the great Kung Lao's gift. It reminds me of his meticulous nature and his generous heart.
Once we retrieve the Jade Jaguar, we will proceed to the Hourglass. There, we will transfer the temporal power stored within it to you.
It now occurs to me that all along, you have had unfettered access to the power stored within. You could have taken it, become Keeper of Time, but chose not to. Why?
Because I have faith in your vision for this new era. I am content to be its guardian.
Thank you, Geras. Now, this process you propose, you are sure it will restore my power?
As sure as I can be of one that has been neither tried nor tested. But even if successful, it is not guaranteed that you will find any other timelines or allies. They may not exist.
I pray this is not a fool's errand. I hate leaving the others behind.
Your champions will bolster their strength against the Dragon Army. It is sure to be the mother of all battles.
May the Elder Gods protect them.
My ex was so wrong. The 30K I spent on this seems like a steal right now.
This magic is incredible.
Not magic, your loveliness. Technology.
Either way, it's clear what must happen next. The gateways and the dragon army have to be destroyed. Scorpion, have you a plan?
We must divide our forces. You, Shang Tsung, Quan Chi will use your magic to attack the portals. As you do, Kenshi and Jared will grind down the dragon army. The rest of us will attack our dark doubles. If they're defeated, it will hopefully throw the dragon warriors into disarray.
An astute strategy.
Truly, I could not have devised a better one.
Enough with the empty flattery. If you want our trust, give us actions, not words.
It is time. Our venom will spread. It will be the end of all things. Armageddon.
That is unfortunate.
The battle continues, Shang Tsung.
Quan Chi, with me. I, for one, am not pleased we were double-crossed.
It is an ire I share.
May I suggest we harness our anger and use it to obliterate my doppelganger's minions?
So yeah, my final thoughts on Mileena. They started to do something with her in Mortal Kombat 10. You got to see her fighting against Kotal Khan to try and reclaim the throne of Outworld. And you also got to see how she lost the throne to begin with, kind of. So they did make her important in Mortal Kombat 10, but you never actually get to see her rule. You only see a small portion of her revolt against Kotal Khan. It kind of felt like all the important character development for Mileena happened off screen. And before that could be remedied and they could build upon her revolt against Kotal Khan and her, ascending as a leader, well, they just go ahead and kill her off in the same game, so yeah, she kind of just gets left neglected. And since they really didn't do too much with her in the old timeline, exploring what it would be like being this manufactured creature of science and magic, and they also didn't explore what I imagine was a pretty crazy identity crisis with the whole Katana clone thing. Since they really didn't just touch on her at all in the old timeline in the way that they probably could have, I definitely prefer this version of Mileena. But enough about Mileena, we are now controlling Shang Tsung, and this is where the reference-heavy stuff really starts to get thrown on us. After all, this chapter is titled Deadly Alliance, which is a very heavy-handed reference to the Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance game where we first saw Shang Tsung and Quan Chi teaming up and basically just ruining everyone's day. It was in that game that they managed to kill Liu Kang, Shaokhan, and they were also setting up the Dragon Army for their invasion in that game as well. Only that was the Dragon Army of Onaga the Dragon King, not the Emperor and Earthrealm that they are referencing in this game. In fact, most of these references are going to be from that 3D era of Mortal Kombat that includes Mortal Kombat 4, Deadly Alliance, Deception, and Armageddon.
This pair will trouble us no more. There are more who acquire our attention.
You're welcome, sorcerers.
Is it me, or is that Raiden becoming insufferable?
You are not wrong, but it is tomorrow's problem. Let us first solve today's.
So yeah, I already went over the heavy-handed reference to Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance in the last fight, but there have been other references so far in the story mode. In fact, back in Mileena's chapter, there were a lot of Mortal Kombat Deception references going on as well. That mostly comes in the form of this alternate dimension Shang Tsung going by the name Damashi whenever he was manipulating Shang Tsung and Quan Chi. Now, the Damashi alias did originally come from Mortal Kombat Deception, and in that game he was some sort of cosmic entity that was the Herald of the Gods. And he went to the protagonist Shujinko to get him to do a bunch of random things that, well, ultimately were not to the benefit of the entire world or all the realms. Because it turns out that Damashi was not in any way related to the Elder Gods. In fact, it was some sort of fractured portion of the spirit of the Dragon King Onaga. Only Onaga was not very forthright with who he was, using the name Damashi to convince Shujinko to help him out. So everything that Shujinko did throughout his entire life for Damashi was actually just a bunch of collecting of relics that Onaga needed in order to get his body back and enter his full form rather than this fractured spirit form. And doing so would make Onaga damn near invincible. So yeah, Damashi was the amazing deceiver of Mortal Kombat Deception. Onaga in disguise. So it's kind of a funny reference that in this game, the alternate dimension Shang Tsung was doing the exact same thing to Shang Tsung and Quan Chi that Onaga was doing to Shujinko in the original timeline with the Damashi title. I think I would have preferred it if Onaga was the one manipulating Shang Tsung in this game as well, like he did Shujinko back in the day, rather than the Titan Shang Tsung, but this is still good.
Problem solved.
Two of 5.
It's progress. Now on to the next. Did you see that?
His life force is feeding the portal's energy.
We kill him. We close them permanently.
These meddling minions grow tiresome.
Let us finish them.
Actually, while I'm on the topic of Mortal Kombat Deception, this entire chapter's team-up between Quan Chi, Shang Tsung, and Raiden is also a reference to Mortal Kombat Deception, because the opening cinematic for that game had the original iconic team-up between these three people. Now, in that cutscene, it was Raiden facing off against the Deadly Alliance in order to try and stop them because everyone else had failed. But in the end, Raiden was not enough to face off against Quan Chi and Shang Tsung together successfully. He ended up losing. But they did not kill him. Before they had the opportunity to do so is when Onaga, in his full form thanks to Shujinko, came storming in to reclaim his dragon army. And at that point, in their most desperate hour, Quan Chi, Shang Tsung, and Raiden, they joined forces reluctantly to face off against a bigger threat. Kind of like how they are teaming up here to once again face off against a much greater threat. Like, the specific part of that scene that stands out in my memory is Raiden using his lightning, Shang Tsung using his fire, and Quan Chi using his necro energy in these laser beam-like blasts against Onaga. Because that's essentially the exact same thing that they are doing in order to destroy these portals. So it is really cool to kind of see what that would look like now with modern graphics. So yeah, another pretty heavy-handed reference, but I really like it. The thing is, whenever Raiden, Quan Chi, and Shang Tsung teamed up previously to face off against Onaga in the original timeline, they did not win. Onaga did come out on top in the end. So let's go ahead and see if the team up this time around in this new timeline fares a little bit better.
So much for fire and ice.
Are you hurt?
I've never been better. Fools. Your spell worked before only because you surprised me. It won't happen again.
You know, I like to leave the subtitles on for whenever the actual dialogue is happening in the game most of the time. And that's no different here. The thing is, that's normally an inconsequential part of actually experiencing the game. However, this time it kind of has some sort of consequence because now I get to see that this version of Shao Kahn is referred to as Dark Shao. Like every time he speaks, he's referred to as Dark Shao, not Shao Kahn, Dark Shao. And that's incredibly funny to me because that basically is just saying Shao. And that's really funny to me because I can't imagine any other version of Shao Kahn or General Shao that's not dark. Like if this is Dark Shao, what was the Shao that we already faced off against? I mean, I guess we can just refer to the General Shao that we've been facing off the entire game as just Shady Shao. Because he really hasn't done quite enough to be referred to as Dark Shao. That's a little too good for him, and I think Shady is just evil enough. Like, I definitely can't imagine there being a good version of Shao Kahn. That's just varying degrees of evil. No, I just find it really funny that this Shao Kahn got the distinction of Dark Shao over all the other Shao Kahns. And now he is about to be upstaged by this version of Shang Tsung. Just like he was back in Mortal Kombat 11 and Deadly Alliance, so I guess some things are very consistent for Shao Kahn.
His soul is ours.
You've done it. The army's trapped.
All of the other realms in this timeline are safe.
Never forget, Raiden, that we risked our lives to perform this service.
One that wouldn't have been needed if you hadn't conspired with the other Shang Tsung.
They will fight to the last man.
Come, we must help the others.
And we'll go ahead and just end this episode here. I believe the chapters transition pretty quickly after this point, so yeah, we'll go ahead and just do the outro now. So yeah, like I said earlier, this story mode kind of takes a very hard turn at the very end of chapter 12, so let's go ahead and talk about what happened. To start off this episode, things were pretty simple. The Earthrealm and Outworld allies went ahead and stormed the fortress to stop Shang Tsung, Quan Chi, and Shao Kahn, General Shao. So yeah, that was simple enough. But right when they were on the verge of being successful, we finally get to meet the benefactor of Shang Tsung and Quan Chi who completely changed their fates. The person had been walking around in what I can only describe as a Chronica disguise. But they were also going by the name Damashi, and it turned out to be the Titan Shang Tsung, the one from one of two possible endings in the Aftermath DLC for Mortal Kombat 11, and the one specifically that managed to defeat Chronica and Liu Kang to become the Keeper of Time and start his own timeline. So yeah, it turns out he found out that Liu Kang had an alternate dimension reality where he ended up winning instead. He didn't like that very much, and he decided, you know what, we really don't need your reality. We're going to go ahead and destroy it, but I can claim it as my own. And then he went on to manipulate the Liu Kang timeline, Quan Chi, and Shang Tsung to do his bidding. And once they were no longer useful, he said, fuck you guys, you're going to get wiped out just like everybody else. So realizing they were backed into a corner, Quan Chi and Shang Tsung decided to help out the Allied forces. And immediately after that, Shang Tsung got his own chapter where Quan Chi was his cameo fighter the entire time, which meant we got to play as the Deadly Alliance. They only had one goal. They were going to go ahead and destroy the portals that the Titan Shang Tsung was going to use in order to move the Dragon Army and his fighters from his timeline into the realms all around Liu Kang's timeline. You know what? I didn't really get around to talking about it during his chapter, but I do think I enjoy this version of Shang Tsung more than any other version that's happened in any previous game. And that's not to say that any of the previous versions of Shang Tsung are bad, because most of them are actually pretty good. Especially the Mortal Kombat 11 version of him, I quite enjoyed that one. The thing is, all of those versions are kind of cartoonishly evil, whereas with this game right out the gate, we get to see what life is like for Shang Tsung without his, sorcerer powers. And things are not going great. Mind you, he could have pretty much been anything he wanted to in life, but he decided to be a con artist. And then he got foiled and got his ass kicked, and well, yeah, things were not going great. And it was because he was poor, beaten, and things were just not going great that he was very susceptible to the manipulation of the other Shang Tsung from the other timeline. And whereas all of the other versions of Shang Tsung were cartoonishly evil for pretty much no reason, here we actually have a reason. Like, once he would have found out that Liu Kang had been conspiring against him his entire life, putting him in situations where he was inevitably going to fail just to prevent any possibility of him gaining any kind of power, yeah, I'd be pretty pissed too. Like, why would I be satisfied with just suffering my whole life, you know? So for him to go from that to wanting to destroy all the realms or rule them and kill Liu Kang, that version of cartoonishly evil actually makes a lot of sense. And then, of course, the voice actor for Shang Tsung in this game is just absolutely killing it. So yeah, there's a lot to like here. But anyway, enough getting sidetracked. Let's go ahead and get back to summing up this story mode because Shang Tsung, Quan Chi, and Raiden were successful and managed to destroy all of the portals that they needed to. So yeah, the Deadly Alliance alongside Raiden managed to pull that one off. So things are looking pretty good. And also in the background, Liu Kang found a way to get his powers back, the Titan of Time powers, so that he can explore other timelines for potential allies to defeat this incredible threat. And that's where we're going to pick up in the very next episode, seeing how Liu Kang fares in his search across other timelines. So yeah, that's going to about do it for this episode. If you found it interesting, feel free to check out some of the other stuff I have on the Thor's Entertainment channel. I do have playthroughs of other Mortal Kombat game story modes, and I also have plenty of online gameplay for Mortal Kombat 1 if that interests you. But yeah, with all that out of the way, take care, and I will see you next time.